it's really quite difficult to get full marks for your AQA GCSE English Language Paper 2, Section B. This video I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to get full marks. We're going to have a close scrutiny of the mark scheme, some tips on how to research and develop your understanding of non-fiction text. We're going to have my model response, and then I'm going to analyse that model response to pinpoint the bits that the examiners are going to love. So stay tuned, let's get you full marks. You're watching Schofield on Shakespeare.
So here is a typical section B question in which you're given a statement and then need to give your point of view. However, to some extent, the effectiveness of your response is likely to depend on your familiarity with non-fiction texts. How often do you read newspapers, online articles, magazines, or letters even? And if you don't do this regularly, why not start doing this now? Now, part of me feels I might be able to get some ideas for this piece of writing from this Daily Mail article. So what are their tips for how to survive modern life? Fall in love with Mondays, be a hugger, try gratitude alphabet, get 8 hours of sleep, be kind to others, hydrate. The issue I have with this, though, is that this seems to be aimed very much at older female readers, whereas, of course, our article is aimed at teenagers. So perhaps a website entitled Teen Health is likely to have some more helpful things that we can adapt. So of course, within a question in which it's stating that teenage lives have become increasingly stressful, it's important to pinpoint different areas of stress and what might be done about them. So you can see within this article there's some helpful points of things that can really help with that stress. So the idea of eating healthy foods, getting proper sleep, and the importance of exercise. What about how articles are written? Well, note the use of capital letters for emphasis. The opening sentence of the article tells us exactly what the article is going to be about. Articles contain, or are supposed to contain, factual information, so it's helpful to give plenty of details about the experts so your reader gets the sense you know what you are talking about. Here we have the full name, full job title with psychologist spelt accurately, age and the name of her book. Articles also tend to use short paragraphs and include quotations from the experts, which use accurate punctuation around the speech marks. However, at times you need to mix things up, and here the advice is summarised rather than quoted directly.
So you're beginning to get some ideas of the content and what to include within your article. Let's now move to dissecting the GCSE mark scheme. I'm going to take each bullet point in turn, and then I'm going to give you some of my own sentences which could be incorporated within an actual Section B response.
The mark scheme is split into two sections with up to 24 marks available for AO5 and 16 for AO6. The top band for content states communication is convincing and compelling. What might this look like? Here's a possible example. You are not alone. From St Ives to Skegness, from Rotherham to Rochester, we have all struggled during this wretched pandemic. Instead of freedom to roam and explore, we have been caged. Instead of banter and good humour within the classroom, we have experienced the mind-numbing tedium of online learning. Unsurprisingly, our mental health has suffered. Notice the subheading, "You are not alone," aimed sharply at my audience, emphasising that I know how much teenagers have had to deal with during the pandemic. Notice also the reference to different parts in all corners of the UK. The implication is that the effects of the pandemic upon teenage life have been widespread, and so, by implication, there is nothing to be ashamed of for having experienced some difficulties. And notice the use of anaphora when I repeat the structure instead of. This allows me to build up in a sophisticated way and to make sharp contrast between what teenagers would typically be able to do during normal life and what they have had to endure during the pandemic. Overall, convincing and compelling. The second bullet point for the top band of the content mark scheme dictates that the tone, style and register are ambitiously selected and deployed to enhance the purposes of the task. Again, this can be tricky to demonstrate within just a few sentences, but essentially your tone and style need to sound mature and goddamn interesting and engaging to read. Something perhaps a little like, within today's Instagram-soaked world, looking good matters. Guys can no longer pull on a stinky, sweaty Babes Rock t-shirt and claim to be ready. Girls are painfully aware that creating that perfect casual look needs meticulous care and preparation, and ideally, a Primark store within tottering distance. Yet we also need to recognise that those apparently nonchalant, oh so relaxed pouts on social media are constructs rather than representative of reality. I try to create a mildly humorous tone in my stereotypical presentation of a guy in a naff Babes Rock t-shirt. A more interesting, sophisticated tone is also created through phrases such as Instagram soaked and tottering distance, implying something about the girl's choice of shoes. There is also a confident, interesting tone created through the dismantling of Instagram photos. The pouts, rather than smiles, which is so 20th century Facebook, are apparently nonchalant and oh so relaxed, with the hyphenated adjective creating a hyperbolic feel, which results in the reader questioning just how relaxed these teenagers really are. Next up, vocabulary. It needs to be extensive and ambitious, with sustained crafting of linguistic devices. Returning to a past paragraph, extensive and ambitious vocabulary is perhaps seen within words or phrases such as Instagram soaked, meticulous, tottering, nonchalant and constructs. Now for organisation. The top band is looking for varied and inventive use of structure features. Compelling writing with convincing and complex ideas, and fluently linked paragraphs with seamlessly integrated discourse markers such as moreover, in addition, furthermore, however, on the other hand, and consequently say, in order to help develop your argument, your point of view, and signpost this viewpoint to the reader. In terms of doing something interesting with your organisation, you might consider using a circular structure, which I would normally recommend for descriptive pieces. My introductory paragraph might start with raging hormones, parents who simply don't get it, peer pressure, and crippling anxieties about our appearance and bodies. Yes, there's no doubt that teenagers have so much to deal with, and that's before even mentioning the dreaded C word, COVID that is. And then in my concluding paragraph, I might write raging hormones, parents who may be beginning to get it, increased kindness, and some understanding of our insecurities in relation to our appearance and bodies. Let's make life easier for ourselves as we try to navigate the complexities of our modern world. By repeating the key ideas, but in a more positive light, i.e. parents who previously simply didn't get it may be beginning to get it, the implication may be that by following the advice in the article, our teenage lives will be improved. In terms of how this is written, note the deliberately grammatically incomplete for effect opening sentence There is no main verb, and this helps provide a dramatic, abrupt opening. Note also the wide range of punctuation. There is the use of quotation marks to reflect the exasperated potential words of a misunderstood teen, and the reassuring use of brackets to confirm which particular swear word beginning with a C is being referred to. Now let's move on to AO6, technical accuracy. The examiner is looking for a wide range of accurate punctuation within sentences and paragraphs to enhance clarity and achieve particular effects, which for me means that you will need to use more than just full stops, commas, exclamation and question marks. You will also need to use a semicolon accurately, perhaps 2 or 3 in the entire piece, no more. And how about a single cheeky colon as well? As I do within the following single paragraph for our teen magazine article. The pressure to achieve a dizzying array of top grades in examinations can be intense in so many schools and families. We need to be clear with teachers and parents, colon. Unnecessary pressure is counterproductive. Yes, good grades matter, but these should not come at the expense of our mental well-being. Teenage years are difficult enough without bearing the weight of our parents' own failures, semicolon. Teenage years need to be enjoyed. The colon is used as the clause unnecessary pressure is counterproductive, explains and expands upon the need for teenagers to be clear with adults in their lives. Meanwhile, the semicolon creates a nice feeling of symmetry and aids the repetition for effect of teenage years. The technical accuracy section of the mark scheme is also looking for an ambitious range of sentences to shape meaning and create impact. Well, to a certain extent, we've just seen this within an earlier example. Provided every single other sentence has a main clause and is grammatically correct, this is indeed a different type of sentence structure aimed to create impact on the reader at the beginning of the article. Let's now look at how an entire paragraph can aim to vary sentence structures as much as possible for maximum effect. Even though most of us are loath to admit it, getting into a positive sleep routine can make a big difference to our moods and energy levels. Calm negotiations with parents about bedtimes, with different times allocated for weekdays and weekends, can result in reduced conflict and, most importantly, a greater sense of well-being. Good quality sleep makes us happier, and the value of reduced parental nagging cannot be overstated. 11 p.m. on a weekday and 1 a.m. on a weekend? Later? Earlier? Either way, getting into regular routines will benefit all parties. How does this paragraph use an ambitious range of sentence structures? Well, on one simple level, every single sentence starts with a different word, a good habit to get into, or at least something to look out for. Endless sentences starting with the can be very tedious. But also note the variety within the types of sentence structures. The first sentence is a complex one, which starts with a subordinate clause. The second sentence, believe it or not, is, in spite of its length, a simple one. There is just one main verb and one main clause. And the third sentence is compounds, 2 equal main clauses, in this case linked by the conjunction and. So, following this complex, simple and compound sentence, we move to some much shorter rhetorical questions. Questions which involve the reader by definition for effect, before ending the paragraph with a short, complex sentence which confidently sums up the potential value of a sleep routine for teenagers. If you found some of that explanation rather technical, I would recommend watching the videos shown here, which includes a detailed explanation and examples of simple, compound, and complex sentences. Next up, spelling, with another reference to the importance of ambitious vocabulary. In terms of your spelling, can you spot the errors within this doctored previous response? There are 5 to find. Press pause to find them now. Pressure has, of course, 2 S's. Meanwhile, remember that when pluralizing a noun ending in Y, it will usually change to an I. Unnecessary is often spelled wrong. It's double N and double S. And then the 2 homophone errors. BARE means naked, not accepting or tolerating something. Whilst this weight is about how heavy or burdensome something is, not about having to hang around, rather frustratingly. You should have got plenty of ideas from my discussion of the question above and use of examples in relation to individual strands of the mark scheme. So, over to you. In the exam, you will have 45 minutes to write your section B response. So press pause within this video and write an outstanding response. Good luck. Here's what I wrote. God, our parents had it so much easier, so much simpler. Navigating modern life as a teenager can be a veritable minefield. The trouble is that so many parents can unwittingly throw metaphorical hand grenades at us without realizing the damage this can cause. Smartphones are an essential part of today's world. Get over it. Whereas our parents simply had to deal with the occasional ticking off following the arrival of a distressingly large phone bill, our smartphones throw up far more complex issues. Yes, they can provide virtually unlimited joy and entertainment, aided by leeching older siblings' Netflix accounts, but it can be difficult to switch off in both senses. Parents need to understand that the landscape has changed enormously since the good old days. My goodness, they sound boring. And that reliance on smartphones is normal and entirely natural. Looking good matters. Within today's Instagram-soaked world, looking good matters for both boys and girls. This is obviously a good thing. Who wants to see baggy t-shirts, 1960s crew cuts, and sprouting chest hair these days? That said, we all need to recognise that the majority of apparently spur-of-the-moment, oh-so-relaxed Instagram photos have taken, in reality, hours to create. Hotly debated decisions about clothing with a trip to TK Maxx likely to have taken place at some point, careful planning in terms of location, and more than 100 photos taken in order that the final picture can be just perfect. Parents need to be educated about the precise role social media plays within our lives and how it impacts our self-confidence. Nagging about overuse is unhelpful. Empathy isn't. Academic success is not the be-all and end-all. And how about the pressure our parents put on us in terms of exam results? Do they not realise that a significant number of today's millionaires have become successful through their own initiative and entrepreneurship in relation to emerging technology, rather than a string of top grades in yesterday's subjects? We need to speak to our parents early on within a public exam year and talk about our own expectations before agreeing some realistic goals. By showing our parents that we have thought carefully not just about the short term, but further afield, they are likely to be more supportive and nag less. COVID has affected us all. The COVID pandemic has taken a toll on all of us. Some of us have lost loved ones. Some of us retain mental health scars following the various unnecessary, in my opinion, lockdowns. Some of us have lost confidence. Some psychologists feel that the long-term devastation caused by the combination of the pandemic and decisions taken by various governments across the world will only be fully understood in around 10 years' time. In the meantime, we need to start enjoying our lives again and recognise that the chances of any of us getting ill from this wretched disease have always been slim and were made even slimmer following the advent of the various vaccinations. So parents need to actually encourage us to go out and spend time with our friends. To commandeer a phrase stolen by a well-known sports brand, we should just do it. Finally, yes, our parents had it so much easier, so much simpler. However, these well-meaning, loving, but also often misguided adults can help us reclaim our teenage years by essentially being a little kinder and recognizing that the world is unrecognizable from their beloved 1980s and 1990s. Let's enjoy life. As Chris Martin from Coldplay sang at the turn of the century, life is for living. So, why does this response receive full marks? Let's pick out a few things. Well, we have the exasperated, engaging opening few sentences, which clearly show a close understanding of the task, i.e. that this is an article for a teenage magazine. Note also the ambitious vocabulary from the off, including navigating veritable minefields and the phrase metaphorical hand grenades. I show early on that I can use a range of accurate punctuation to enhance clarity and achieve particular effects. The colon allows me to explain why navigating modern life as a teen can be so tricky. I use an ambitious range of sentence structures. The first one within the extract on the screen is complex and riskily long, but uses semicolons to split up longer phrases, breaking down the process of creating that perfect Instagram photo. Fittingly, after such a long sentence, this sentence is much shorter, still complex, but leading nicely into a dramatic one-word sentence for effect to end the paragraph on a punchy note. Notice the more sophisticated tone within this section. Hyphenated adjectives such as spur of the moment and oh so relaxed subtly undermine any notion of spontaneity in relation to photos posted by teenagers on Instagram. Whilst there is an important level of detail about what may take place prior to the photo being posted, specific references to TK Maxx and the number of photos taken suggest a detailed knowledge of the area and sophisticated control of purpose and effects. Note the lively subheaders, which once again are aimed at showing an understanding and empathy with the target teenage audience. Whilst notice how I try to do something interesting with my structure by starting my final paragraph with similar sentiments to the first paragraph. However, the frustrated God has been replaced by the more accepting, the calmer post-advice yes.
This has been a Schofield on Shakespeare production, showing you exactly what to do to get full marks within your AQA GCSE English Language Paper 2 Section B. Many thanks for watching.